It's a joy to be with you on this Friday of the Word of Encouragement, and many of you may be off today, and I'm so glad that you have joined us for this little Bible study. It's always a joy to be with you. I trust you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and you're having a good day today. We're turning the corner. Before we know it, Christmas is going to be here, and we're looking forward to that because it's one of the great opportunities we have to give the gospel. And speaking of the gospel, chapter 15 of 1 Corinthians is the chapter that gives clearly what the gospel is. It's clearly defined that way. I declare unto you the gospel, which I preach unto you, verse 1 of chapter 15. And he gives the gospel, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And then to substantiate the bodily resurrection of Christ, and the theme of this chapter is the bodily resurrection of the believer, and Jesus was the first fruits. To emphasize that, he goes down the line of those that had actually seen him in his resurrected state. And we learn a lot from that. And then we read in verse 8, and last of all, he was seen of me, Paul's here speaking, also as of one born out of due time. For I'm the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace which was bestowed upon me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. As we finish up this Thanksgiving week, I think it would be good for us to go over our testimony. All of us are different. Paul knew how God had gloriously saved him, and the things against the gospel that he had done. He marveled at that. And then he says, by the grace of God, by God's free gift, based upon what Christ did, of his saving power and of his transforming power, I am what I am. And that's what we need to also remember. Everything about our lives is because of what Christ did. We are what we are by the grace of God. And what I love here is that he doesn't just have a sort of meek and mild perspective here with his head hanging low. He talks here instead about the grace of God did something for me. It wasn't in vain when it was bestowed on me. I labored more abundantly than they all. In other words, once I got saved, as bad as I was before I got saved, and though I'm the least of the apostles, the grace of God has enabled me to do more than many people. God has been good to me. It's amazing what God has done. You see, the Apostle Paul did not let his past hinder his future. He admitted his past. He knew he had nothing in and of himself. And because he was delivered, he was going to make his future be that future that God wanted, and he was going to have the confidence that comes because it's the grace of God that does it. So many believers think humility is walking around and saying, oh, how bad I am. No, that's a real inner focus. That's a focus on self. We are to forget those things which are behind. Yes, we have consequences, things that we'll have to deal with, but even those, if we're walking by faith, God will use that to cause us to be effective in ministry. We can actually rejoice in what has happened after we have confessed our sin. God is so good, and we can labor more abundantly than they all. It's by the grace of God we are what we are. And then he makes it clear, this laboring abundantly was not him, yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Everything you see in me as the Apostle Paul is all because of God's grace. I don't deserve it. I shouldn't be here. I am what I am by the grace of God. But the fact is, God has worked, and you're a product of that, Corinthians. God has used me to start this church, and look at what God has done. But it wasn't me. It was the grace of God, and God can do that for you. I think that's an amazing passage here of thanksgiving on the part of the Apostle Paul for the deliverance of the Lord through Christ, and yet the thrill that he had that deliverance then allowed him to be abundant in his ministry for the Lord. And he was rejoicing in the wonderful fruit that he had seen. And that's what God wants us to do. Be thankful for what God has done, realizing we have nothing to offer God. It's a miracle that we've been saved. It's a miracle we can serve God. But then God wants us to labor more abundantly than they all, as he says here, by the grace of God, looking to the Lord so that he can be honored. So let's be excited as we look forward to a new year coming up. Let's ask God to cause us to put those things behind that are negative, learn from them, be honest with God, and then reach forth to those things which are before and see what the grace of God will do.